Hello, my name is Terry Harrison. I'm going to show you how to paint a bluebell wood in watercolour. Now, one of the biggest problems with watercolour painting is actually getting the image down onto the watercolour paper. I'm going to show you a very, very simple way of achieving this. With this very thin graphite paper, which is called trace down paper, you put that face down onto your watercolour paper. The layout is taped at the top. You then draw over the top of your layout with a biro. This presses the trace down paper onto the watercolour paper. Carefully draw over the outline of your image. When you finish the trace down, lift the layout off, and there is your drawing on the watercolour paper. The drawing is complete. Around the edge I put some masking tape. So when the painting is finished, we remove the masking tape and you're left with a nice white border. We're going to start with a brush called the Golden Leaf, and we're going to paint in the background colours wet into wet. So with some cobalt blue, start by dabbing the colour onto the surface of the paper. Wash the brush out. Some cadmium yellow, and drop that into the cobalt blue and just dab with the brush. Some more blue. So using a combination of cobalt blue and cadmium yellow, start to stipple the background colours into the wood. Introduce another colour. This is sunlit green. And go right up to the edge of the painting, over the masking tape. Some more blue. Sunlit green with some cobalt blue. And right the way out to the edge of the painting. Then we allow that to dry. Next we're going to put in the bluebells. The colour I'm going to use for the bluebells is cobalt blue with a touch of permanent rose. This should give you a really fresh bluebell colour. So, start to stipple the colours into the background. Change the colour slightly, maybe a touch more blue. And some more permanent rose. Leave a few gaps for the grasses. And avoid painting the footpath. Wash the brush out. Squeeze the water out of the brush so it's not too wet. Some sunlit green with a little bit of raw sienna. Paint into the gaps. Change the colour slightly, maybe a little bit darker. This is some country olive. bring that down to the bottom of the painting. Then moving to a smaller brush, this is the foliage brush, some green, and just go over these white areas at the foot of the wood, along the edge like that, to get rid of that white. So just leaving the footpath darker colour, just flick up and still with the darker colour, while this is still just a little bit wet, putting some more textures in the foreground. Then allow that to dry. Using the medium detail brush and some raw sienna, I'm going to paint in the footpath. So fairly light to start with. I'm just going to paint the footpath at the back of the wood, very, very pale. Bring that forward. Slightly stronger mix into there. Touch of burnt sienna into the raw sienna. And while that's still wet, with some burnt umber, just a touch of burnt umber, just drop that into the wet. So this is wet into wet, just to add a bit of texture in the foreground. This white area here is a puddle. We paint that in with a similar colour to this background, which is cobalt blue and sunlit green. So fairly pale. Touch more blue. Then let that dry off.